Welcome to Meteor Interviews, a series of interviews with Meteor developers, community, and core team members. Today I'm speaking with Josh Owens. If you've read, watched, or listened to anything about Meteor, you've probably come across Josh or his work. He's a co-host of the Meteor podcast, runs the Meteor news site creator.io, runs Meteor Club, where he teaches the Mastering Meteor online workshop and the Testing Meteor online workshop, writes regular blog posts, does Meteor Club Q&A interviews, and somehow still finds the time to mentor apprentices. That was a lot for a one-sentence intro. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks. Yeah, that is a lot.
It is a lot.
I'm finding it hard to explain everything I do anymore.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. So my goal today is to hear about your experience building the community and teaching and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, sure.
So, Josh, you've become a central person in the Meteor community. How long have you been working with Meteor?
It'll be 2 years in April. So I guess a year and 11 months at this point. Before this, I did Rails stuff. I started with that in 2005, I guess professionally, September 2005, I think it was. I made the leap and got my first kind of programming job. It was for a company. Looking back on it, I didn't know it then, but they were spammers, and it was probably not the best job to get, but it was on the 37 Signals job board, and I was ready to I was doing corporate IT desktop support, and that was horrible and draining, and so
yep.
made the leap there. And
so you were pretty early into Rails as well.
Yeah, for sure. But the thing for me back then was, I took, I've been programming since I was 8 years old, maybe. I had an Atari 800, and it had the basic cartridge you could pop in and
awesome.
Start writing code. And they had limited classes in high school, and I took everything that they had that was computer related, and got exposed to other programming languages there. But I only did a year of college. I got some government grants, but then the stupid thing was I was working part-time, and apparently I made too much money. My parents qualified for the grants, but not me. So I only took the year because I really didn't want all that debt on me. And so I took, I had a C++ class and a Java class, and I don't know, I wasn't a deeply trained programmer necessarily. I would call myself more of a dabbler. But really I'd picked up PHP, cause I was doing LAN parties and wanted a way for people to pick where they're going to sit at the LAN party. And so I built this horrible app, it was using HTML, early HTML, and it had tables to literally lay out where the tables were going to be. But people could click on it and say, I want that seat, and then they could pay via PayPal. And that was my first real programming experience.
Awesome.
Yeah, with a web app.
You built that in PHP.
Yeah. And so, when Rails came along, I didn't know Ruby very well. I was still I knew object-oriented programming enough, but it was the radical thing. I don't have to put my queries straight in my PHP HTML, right? Whoa, what's this? But yeah, no, I mean, I spent probably 9 years getting really good at programming and development, and probably about 7 years in, started to dabble into JavaScript and worked at a place where we had pair programming. And they their culture at the time was 100% pair programming. If you were working on a client project, there should be two of you sitting or standing together working on the code. So,
yep.
And that was really amazing for me because I didn't have to worry about it was a really great way to learn. It wasn't just me nose down in a book. It was
totally.
Me standing next to someone, and we were talking back and forth, and I could ask questions, and I was learning, and I was forcing my pair to explain things, and
yep.
Hopefully he was writing better code. So
yep.
that was amazing.
And you pick up tricks and development environment settings and all kinds of good stuff that you might not otherwise.
Yeah, but the guy I learned JavaScript from was using Redcar, so I don't know how much I could pick up from that. That's a horrible IDE, but I still did learn a ton. And The interesting thing is like it got me dabbling in JavaScript and Backbone, and so I came to Meteor through Ryan Bates, actually, Railscast, and he did this series of comparisons in the pro portion of his site at the time, and um, yeah, I don't know, like it was really interesting because you look at Ember, you look at Backbone, you look at Angular, like he did the comparison. He just built the same app over and over and over again in this series of videos, and when he came to the Meteor one, like every other framework had two like 10 to 15-minute episodes, and Meteor was like one 14-minute episode, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of big, like the
Yep.
fact that he can build that app in half the time,
Yep.
that made me pay attention, so I give it a try.
Cool. So that's what brought you to Rails. Sorry, from Rails to Meteor, and so that was pretty early in Meteor. Meteor was not very mature at the time. What version was that?
I think the version I remember the most is probably like '06, early '06. And you're right, like it wasn't mature, right? Like so I've lived through the pain points of like oplog stuff coming out, and probably the biggest pain was '08 with Blaze, like completely rewriting the front end. That took a lot. Like as a package writer at the time, like I had written a lot of packages, and like moving to Blaze was much trickier for package writers, I think.
Yep.
And then '09 was also a little hairy because they completely changed the package landscape, and I mean it had to be done, but it was also a tough time.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest issues with Meteor is not the stability of Meteor itself, but um, in various versions coming up to 1.0, there were a lot of periods where a lot of community packages just couldn't keep up with changes in the APIs and the packaging system and got abandoned.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll change?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more stable now. I'm curious to see what Windows support does to the package ecosystem, because I think it's going to make it a little bit harder for package maintainers
Yeah.
to deal with, but they're doing everything they can to make it easier with the build boxes and stuff.
Yeah, Velocity comes to mind. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're going to be supporting Meteor, but I'm sorry, Windows, but I think there will probably be some work for them to do, especially around the mirror and things like that.
Yeah, I can just say like I'm pretty sure so I've got a Meteor Club Slack chat room, and the Velocity team for now hangs out in there. It sounds like we're gonna set up a Velocity, like a separate Velocity one, but I haven't been to the meeting in a couple weeks, so maybe they're talking about it, but I haven't seen or heard anything so far about anyone working on Windows support. And frankly, like none of us have Windows boxes, so
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think one of the major goals of post 1.0 Meteor is to be a little bit more stable. So um, I hopefully after Windows hits, then that'll be the last kind of big change for a little while until version 2. Yeah,
yeah, I hope so.
cool. So you mentioned Ryan Bates. Who were some of your other influences?
Gosh, okay. So I would say Sasha Greif is definitely an
Yeah,
influencer of mine. I talk to him a lot, and we just I don't know, we tend to talk about like business building, like educational type stuff. Obviously, with him writing the book, like there's some parallels there for me.
yeah.
And then
Sasha
Brennan,
being the author of Discover Meteor for anybody that doesn't know that, and that's a great book to check out, of course.
yeah, yeah, and he does Telescope as well, which obviously I used to run Crater, so
Right.
uh, we've been talking a lot about that as well since we got that new design out. Um, yeah, I would say Brennan Dunn as well. Like he was a developer,
Yeah.
and him and I were kind of in the same spot. Like I was co-running a large development firm in 2011, kind of as I was learning JavaScript. That was that pair programming place that I mentioned, and um, he went from being a developer, like a lead developer and salesperson, to becoming more of a educational resource on like how to grow your freelancing business and increase your client rates and that kind of thing. And I've just kind of been watching him do that. He took Amy Hoy's 30 by 500 class, and I also took the class. And so, we were alums, and we weren't in the same class. Like I took it after him, but I've always just kind of paid attention to him and Amy Hoy and Nathan
Yeah.
Barry and those kinds of people, and just watching what they're doing and how they do it. And you know, um, I guess that's kind of been an impetus for me, like educational material for me to like how to build an educational business. But it was really, I guess, about a year ago. My good friend Jim Wyrick passed away, and I was just we were at a meetup where I was talking about this, and it blew me away when I just saw the outpouring of love and adoration from people. And I mean, like there was literally two books of tweets this thick that they had printed out and had on display.
Yep.
And they did that within like 36 hours of him passing away. Like all those tweets were just mentions of him. They just went to the mention page and hit print.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was interesting to me to see that, because like people like were flying in from all over the United States to be at his funeral. And I was just like, I mean, I knew the guy. I had worked alongside him, and he was a really great guy, and he always took time to answer my questions. And I guess I never really thought about like, why has he affected so many people? And it
Right.
was
So Jim being the one of the major
Ruby
Ruby
guys.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the author of Ruby Gems, one of the authors of Ruby Gems, author of Rake. He was
Yeah.
known for his teaching. Yeah, and yeah, huge influence.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
definitely. But I guess I never like I knew he taught some classes, and I knew he had done Rake, but I started after he passed away, I started poking around on like Wikipedia and stuff, and I hadn't realized like, I mean, Rake's influential, but they said something like 10 million downloads on Rake at the time, and obviously like Ruby Gems is pretty foundational, and he played an early part in those. Like Rake was always kind of his, and he owned it, but Ruby Gems, he was just kind of like there and working on it with people, but later like other people took it over. But I really think it was more about his public speaking and his teaching that seemed to reach people. And I don't know, like maybe it's just me getting older and having kids and that kind of thing. You start thinking about your mortality and your legacy and that kind of thing. And I want to leave a positive impact on this world. I don't want to be a guy that built the next, or what people want to be, the next Uber for X or social network for dog lovers. Like that's just not. I don't think that's gonna make the world a better place necessarily. Like it could make people a lot of money, but I don't know. Like being a freelancer, like that's a tough thing. And then like when you look back, like I look back at my career of 10 and 11 years and try to think of like what game changing applications have I worked on. Like there's been so few that are even still around. And the probably the biggest one that comes to mind is Words with Friends, and that doesn't feel like it was a big game changer, like it was
Yeah.
a game, I guess, but
Yeah. Acquired by Zynga at some point a few years ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Good guys. Fun project to work on, but again, like not necessarily like something that's going to leave a positive impact on the world, or at least I had a small piece in it, like helping scale it and stuff. But I just started thinking like, how can I make the world a better place? And Meteor education, I think, is a strong place for me to be, because I feel like Meteor is this huge game changer. Like I I I feel like I've caught on to something that the rest of the world will catch on to, and this is going to change the face of web development for the next 10 to 20 years, most likely. The way Rails changed things back then. I mean, you look at every kind of framework that's come out for Java or even JavaScript. Like everything has been influenced by the MVC stack, which wasn't I don't feel was as popular until Rails kind of came along. So
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a new era, and I really think that Meteor is going to be a big part of it. So I mean, it's the only full stack thing right now. There's you can definitely build the same types of applications with Angular or React and wire it up to various backends and do a lot of work. But yeah, I definitely agree. So
Yeah.
so you're focusing on things that are really going to touch people in a personal way, and you're teaching. So maybe tell me a bit about your workshops.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I actually had a conversation with Brennan Dunn. Back in August, things were changing at differential, and I was of the opinion that uh, training and open source was the way to like build knowledge and like mindset about your company and like get you kind of out there, kind of like Thoughtbot, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And so that those were kind of my thoughts, and I think they wanted to move in a different direction, and so it kind of got my wheels spinning. And Amy Hoy calls it the F this moment. I don't know if this is explicit or
Yep.
not. Um,
No problem.
but so yeah, I just kind of like we were driving down to vacation, and I just kind of like had that moment in the car as we're driving to Florida. Like I've got 14 hours, and everybody keeps falling asleep on me in the car, so it's just me thinking, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like I should figure out a way to like work on the stuff that I want to be working on. And yeah, so I reached out to a few people that I knew were successful with it, and Brennan's advice. At the time, I was working on a book, and the testing book, and Brennan started with a SaaS app, and then moved into a book, and then moved into training. And when I reached out to him, I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about creating like a community. Like I've already started building a community with Creator, but I want to build something even more like intimate and helpful to people." And he said, "Well, I would put the community piece on hold, but if I had to do it over again, I'd probably start with a training class, then move into a book, and then move into a SaaS app because those are the varying levels of like, stair stepping up in hardness. Like building a SaaS app, he pointed out, it's taken him years to hit the kind of like 80,000 a year type revenue mark, and
With plan scope.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he's hit that same mark with his books and with his training. And so I took his advice and just kind of sat down and started working on a training class. And yeah, I approached it how I knew best, which is, I think pair programming is a great way to learn. And so we do kind of like a fishbowl style pairing where I built a Twitter clone. I had a designer come in and just do all the style for me. So we start with the CSS already because number one, like I am not a designer. I
Yeah.
suck at that. And I also think like people that want to learn Meteor, like if you know CSS, that's great for you, but I don't think it's necessary.
We do the same for our workshop. The very first commit is just take the CSS, put it there, and everything else will work.
Yeah, yeah. And so I type Meteor create and then copy over the CSS just like you said. And then from there, like I've got a series of user stories that we follow. Oh, there goes a train. um, we've got a series of user stories we follow, and we're building an app from scratch. And so like the very first thing we do is get login working, and then we're hooking up like the ability to actually put a tweet into the database, and then displaying those tweets. And I walk through removing auto publish and insecure, and we start hooking things up correctly. And then you can follow people on Twitter, and then we build a reactive join so you can see like all the people you follow, you see their tweets. And so I just kind of like move all the way through the app. We get mentions in there and with autocomplete. And then I add location stuff with Cordova and show people like how to compile the Cordova application and that kind of thing. And so, I found it works best to break it up into 2 4-hour sessions. And so I just use Google Hangout, and we get in there and we do like 2 hours, take a 10-minute break, do another 2 hours, and cover like half the material. And then like usually the next day or a couple of days later, we'll have a second class, and we'll just do the same thing, and we get all the way through. We add like 13 kind of major features in there, and then we cover a little bit of deployment as well.
Awesome. And you do a testing workshop also.
Yeah, I've run that once. So that book I was writing was on testing, Meteor, and that I would never recommend that to anyone. Like, don't take something that's so brand spanking new that no, it's not even being done written. Like
Yep.
I talk to Sam all the time about it. Sam Hadawam. He started writing a book as well a couple months after me, and I decided at a point, like, that the the deal that I had made with Differential, I think, made it hard for me to necessarily make a ton of money on the book, since I had started writing it while I was there. So, you know, between that and the fact that Sam was writing a book, I kind of felt like he's going to be able to focus on it a lot more than I can, because I'm still building these training classes and all kinds of stuff. And so Sam and I had a couple talks, and we decided to like shift all that over to him. So Differential and Sam cut a deal and kind of moved all those customers over to his book. Um, I mean, I still feel like Sam's going to be writing for another probably 8 months to a year
Yep.
before the thing's really at a finished state. Just because, I mean, Velocity's still not at a 1.0, and everything's changing every day. And like, I still have, like, I wrote a whole chapter on Cucumber, on the first version of Cucumber, which Sam didn't write, and had screenshots, and it just, like, those screenshots were out of date. The repo in the package started being unmaintained and stopped working, and it was just like, it was such a mess.
So you had to go fix that before you could finish the chapter.
Yeah, you gotta be like, you gotta go write code, like go fix a package before you can write about the book.
Yeah.
And like, it's hard enough, I think, doing the discovery and writing the book and figuring out how to get these tests to work, which is, a lot of it can be kind of a new paradigm
Yeah.
with reactive interface. And then on top of that, you got to go like bug fix every package you're writing about, which was kind of tough. And so found a way to shift that to Sam. And but then testing is still like near and dear to my heart. I feel like it made me a better developer, and I want to see more people get into Velocity. I think if I rely on it and you rely on it, and 30, 40, 50 other people rely on it, like, all of a sudden that's a pretty big group of people that may care enough to make it better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's come a long way in terms of stability, a really long way, but it's so ambitious. But I think it's really getting there.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, it's just like Sam and I, through the discussions about, like, I still want to be involved in testing, and, kind of, why don't we do a class together? Like, I've proven that this model works for kind of a Meteor workshop. Why don't we do a specialized kind of like testing class? And, I working with someone else is, I think, it's very different, right? So I know my schedule. I know where I can slot things in. But Sam and I, like, he's busy, I'm busy. So, he said, we were about a week out, and he's like, we don't have enough people to make this interesting, right? Like, my hourly rate is this and your hourly rate is this. And if we split the cash, this isn't enough people. We really need more people in this class. And so I just kind of hustled the way that I do. And we went from like 2 people signed up to, I think, 6.
Awesome.
And, our go point was 5. And
Yeah.
so, we got the last sign up on a Friday, and we're supposed to give the class on a Monday. and so we're like, well, crap, now we got to like write all this, like, we kind of knew how, but we ended up spending, I would say, almost 4 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like, writing all the material. So we were writing the Monday and Tuesday class material like the same day.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Never done that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so that was a little stressful, but I still think it was a good class, and we're talking about maybe doing it again, because I feel like anytime you write code once, you do an okay job. But I've noticed with the Mastering Meteor class, I've written the same code 5 or 6 times, and it's like rewatching your favorite movie, right? Like you maybe didn't notice that line that was in there, and then all of a sudden you
Yeah.
notice it and you're like, oh, that was funny, that was clever. Like I totally missed that the first 2 times I watched it. So I keep having these little insights about maybe how to build this Twitter clone better, and I think it would be the same with Sam and I's class. So I think the second version would be a lot stronger. And
Cool.
so
So it
I'm
sounds,
hoping we'll do another one.
yeah, it sounds like it'd be a great opportunity. Nice intimate class.
Yeah, definitely. 6 people and 2 trainers, like that's a very high,
Yeah.
almost one-on-one level.
Two trainers that have been working on velocity and in there with testing since the very beginning. That's awesome.
Yep.
So what do you find is really hard for people to learn in terms of people that are new to Meteor? What concepts do they have trouble with?
Data context on templates seems to be something that people find hard to reason about. We were just talking about this last night at the Cincinnati meetup. I feel like they've got like each X and Y coming out. So I think it's a little more obvious, like how those data contexts can work. So a lot of times I'll show people like the with block helper or we'll return a data context that's a JavaScript object, and it's got keys on there that we can key off of, and it makes it a little more obvious for people.
Yeah, that should get a lot easier in the next version of Blaze.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
concept of reactivity itself, what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's hard for people to reason about when things are re-rendering on a page, and it's not always obvious because if you look at Crater, it actually re-renders and resubscribes like 3 or 4 times to the subscriptions that you hit when you go to the front page. And the reason that's happening is because Sasha's relying on a session variable and for a search query. So even though you're not doing a search, like there's still like this multiple state that happens.
Yep.
That's very, very hard for people to reason about. I had one yesterday where someone was making subscriptions on the client side, and they made the first subscription, and it grabbed, like, let's say they go in and they grab all the widgets that are in their database, right? And then like they want to know all the customers that purchased the widgets, and they want to know like all the orders that were involved and that had the widget in it, and the first subscription they made brought in the widgets, but then the subsequent subscriptions that they made just called, widgets.find.map, and they would like grab out all the IDs. Well, the problem is, widgets.find is on the client is fully reactive. So as the data from the first subscription comes over, it's going to rerun that query every time. So every, 1, 2, 3 records that come in, that's going to rerun. And you've got these like, I was seeing like 300, 400 kind of subscription requests happening just from one user logging in. And, it was slowing down and causing like 80-second wait times on the page, which is awful.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean, and you have to guard around various things like the user being null for a split second, and then or certain data being not there for a very brief time, and then it'll be there the next time. So you're in the console debugging, and people think, oh, the user's there, why, or my data's there, why would it have been undefined at this point? So
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So where do you see the Meteor community going? Is there anything holding it back, or what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. I'm very I've been very vocal about this to the Meteor development group as well. But I see, I've got close to 1,500 people on my mailing list, and when they join, they get like this series of automated emails from me. But they all end with like questions that encourage them to like start interacting with me over email. And
you have been reading Brennan Dunn.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, probably like the biggest things I get are like, will my app scale, or like I can't use Meteor because it's only supporting Mongo right now, and I think that we need more people talking about the how scalable Meteor is right now, and we need more people talking about like why Mongo is not really a problem. And my standard response, like I've got a blog post that's half finished in my drafts folder, and my standard response is, you're not going to need it, right? Like scaling is probably the least of your problems when you're building an application, unless you're just going to have a completely free app or something. Chances are you're building a SaaS or some other kind of project that people are going to pay money for.
Right.
And you're going to like the hardest thing for a developer is going to be getting the eyeballs on it and convincing people to use it. And, I think if you're able to accomplish both of those, there's still going to be a slow enough growth curve that you're going to be able to figure out the scaling piece long before it ever becomes a huge problem for you.
Absolutely. The faster you can iterate to get there, the better. So I think Meteor is great for that.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think like a lot of people in their mind, Meteor, like they're not going to look at Meteor until SQL support is there. So
And how much of that do you think is on Meteor? I mean, it's an interesting thing where there is a core group that is pretty active about managing the whole project and everything to do with it. So do you think that discourages community, or do you think it helps? And is that the kind of thing that the people that are looking for Meteor should a community project just I'm sorry for SQL, should a community project come up for that?
it's a trap. I can't answer that.
Yeah.
No. I've very, very deep thoughts on this. So on the surface level, I would say there's already packages out there that are pushing MySQL forward, and now I just saw someone did, a live query for PostgreSQL. Um, Meteor is, I don't know. I think I was talking to you, and I said that they're like a meticulous-driven development shop, right?
Yeah.
They want to make sure like every little detail of what they are building is right and it is good. And you know, I've had some talks with people at MDG, and they sometimes doubt the ability of the community to live up to their expectations and their level. And I think in general, the community kind of feels the same way. Like they see the quality from MDG, and so they question, any kind of third party package that does anything serious. Like how good can it be? Because my usual response to the SQL waiters, let's call them, is like, hey, here's one right now. Like you can totally go play with MySQL and get going
Yeah.
now. And like this guy would probably love for people to be building with this thing and giving feedback and that kind of stuff. And the typical response is, well, but it's not
It's not
official.
official.
I don't know if I want to dabble in that. This is, database is serious business. Suit and tie, serious business, I guess.
Yeah, but maybe so is package management, right? It could be like that's a pretty tough problem, and to really get it right. But I think there was a really good community effort that started that, and yeah, it changed a little bit at 0.9, but
I
I
would actually say Meteorite, I feel like had a better system down than even what we have today after 0.9. Like it's probably, I don't know if that's popular opinion or not, but um, I look back and like we could point at a Git repo and a branch or a tag and install a
yeah
package. But now, I know there's other concerns now, like other platforms and that kind of thing. And that's kind of why we need pre-built binaries that people download and install. But, at the same time, I feel like we did lose some functionality and we gained some slowness, which the new logic constraint
yeah
solver should
yeah that should
fix.
fix it. I do miss
But
being able to point to a Git repo for a package. Yeah,
so much so,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
it's very frustrating.
But still, I think it's a great example of like people just stepping up and building something needed, and then
I agree.
if the media development group wants to give their opinion or improve it in some way, then they will. So
Yeah, yeah, and they have trusted things, right? Like Velocity, they know they couldn't get to it, and there was a good enough team being put together that they just kind of like trust our opinions. Like I had a pull request the other day, and they didn't understand it, and like the Velocity team just kind of all piled on and said like this is a needed change, and they're just like, all right, well, we'll do it then.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, it's been great talking with you. Thanks.
Yeah.
So Josh, if our listeners would like to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
Yeah, just email me, joshua.owens@gmail.com is probably the easiest way if you want to like just one-on-one chat. I'm at Josh Owens on Twitter, and I've got a blog, joshowens.me. And if you read any of the posts, you can sign up for the mailing list at the bottom, and you'll get those automated emails, and that's another easy way to strike up a conversation.
Awesome. And meteorjs.club and Josh runs creator.io, so he's everywhere.
All the things, and a somewhat not so popular YouTube channel. I've got like 260 subscribers.
Lots of great interviews on there.
Yep.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, sure thing.